So, this is how it started. And this is how it looks now. After nearly a year of preparation and carefully laying some groundwork, The Eternals is about to hit theaters across the entire globe. In fact, our friends in Australia are about to get their first look at it on the 3rd with their early previews. Here in the United States, we'll get a shot at it on Thursday in the early afternoon or early evening, depending upon what part of the country that you live in. Now, the question is, that I think everybody is asking is, who is this film made for? At every turn, the Skittles Rainbow marketing efforts made sure that the audience knows nothing else about this particular team of heroes. There has been plenty of exposition about the immutables of this group of supposed heroes, but as they haven't ever existed in the MCU in any form to date, there's precious little to know about them, or at least that's what they want you to think. I fancy myself a person who appreciates the older comic books. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee defined eras at Marvel with their different styles. The Eternals were in line with the more fantastic stylings of Kirby. Of course, he put them together. But the current veneer that's been applied by Kevin Feige is dull and drab. Based on the many reviews available to all right now, it is fairly apparent that I should expect 7,000 years of drab yet grandiose background. I should expect subpar CGI along with a ham-fisted political narratively driven story. I guess the critics are finally noticing the terrible writing outside of their favored political lectures, at least they are at this point. And unless there's an overwhelming response to this video in the comments below, I'm actually not going to see this film. Anyway, from the opening montage, you can probably see some of the areas that radically changed over the last 2 weeks going into this film. In fact, there are two that should wake some folks up over there at Disney. First, the critics aren't thrilled with this film, and to be blunt, for the same reasons that the audience have been getting run off from the last few. Second, the projections for this film's box office are skewing downward. In fact, down by 25% in just 1 week. While this film may open, it probably will be well shy of the $125 million top end domestically that they would have hoped for. At this point, I imagine anything close to or beating Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will be considered a win publicly for Disney. I think secretly, many had hoped, within the confines of the Mouse House, that this would top $1 billion in worldwide box office, even without the Beijing bucks. And speaking of Beijing bucks, there aren't any. This film will not have a Chinese release. We've been talking about that for a while. In fact, the last 3 Disney MCU films are the outcasts when it comes to China. In the most likely scenario that I can come up with, The Eternals could hit a $90 million open domestically. With no D+ release, that's obviously going to push the theater revenue up. I still predict that the film could make about $85 million on the high end, about $65 million on the low end. And I think the domestic gross is projected at about $165 to $215 million domestically. I don't know that it'll get to those numbers because that would put it just behind Shang-Chi, as is pointed out by Bounding Into Comics. I think the top end, personally, will be about $175 for this film, and it could be far, far less. Word of mouth will not be kind to this film, and the Rotten Tomatoes numbers are not great. Even the professional shill critics are hedging their bets with words, if not their actual grades. You should read the reviews, not just look at the scores. Metacritic is usually a pretty good source, or at least gives you a good idea of what an audience as a whole might actually think about a film. This film is firmly mixed at best. A lot of yellow there. And with an estimated budget of over $200 million, this film needs to cross the $600 million gross box office worldwide just to break even. It may not get there. As Comic Book News points out in this article, the only positive that it has going for it is that there is a 2-week gap before Ghostbusters Afterlife. At that point, I expect, and so should you, that the Eternals will get stuck in a box office purgatory, so to speak. In fact, the legs of this film have already been removed by its critical reception, and the anti-marketing campaign that is now in full swing isn't going to help. In fact, Bounding actually dropped another article highlighting the now overtired and darn near exhausted marketing ploy that is the ists and the phobes fault if this movie flops. And a now infamous tweet that Kumail Nanjiani reacted to a supposed review bombing of the film on IMDb. In the now deleted tweet he wrote, "It looks like we are upsetting the right people." Ironically, at the time of the review bombing, it was in 2-1 in favor of the film that was at this point not seen by anyone outside of the critics. It was also obvious that the real critic reviews were headed downhill, and the tweet was rapidly aging very poorly, as myself and many others on Twitter kind of pointed out. When all else fails and your film is bereft of story and is headed for Dumpsville, the new trope for Hollywood misanthropes is to blame the audience. Of course, it doesn't work. It never has, and yet they trot it out all the time. It really won't work this time, as we see problems of leaning into the Rotten Tomatoes aggregator for legitimacy. It's yielding fewer and fewer fruits. The critics have realized that their fleeting relevancy is actually tied to not misleading their audience. Once the Times of the UK unleashed their scathing review, all bets were off. Now it was on Rotten Tomatoes to actually control the narrative around the descent of the film's Rotten score to just barely rotten, or just barely fresh, depending upon what time of day you caught it, at least in the last couple of days. For a while, they were able to maintain a 60% score, despite the fact that had they not rounded up, it would have been 59%. 5.9 is 59% in their score. Of course, once they were called on the carpet for that, they allowed it to dip to rotten. At least that's what I suspect. From there, it was pretty much a 1-for-1 score. A balance of good versus bad so that they could keep it on that edge. Talk about trying to retain some legitimacy. But it seems the critical reviews from the so-called professional critics were kind of overwhelming. As of this recording, the score sits at 59%. I'll be forthright here. Most of the time, I don't agree with the critics. I often find them destroying films that become huge winners at the box office. They try to hold on to the idea that they critique art and culture, and I guess in a way they do. But more often than not, they fall very short of both of these when compared to their fellow human beings. It's easy to lose touch when you think you are above others. Believe me, I can see it, and so can you. But in this current age of modern audiences and pandering, that doesn't actually produce money. I find that if the critics agree that the film's story might matter, maybe I should pay attention. As of today, we are being made aware of the Fortification that might be taking place for this film. Another golden open is brewing, as you can see here, and there is a push to make this film work, to make sure it opens. From the diversity and inclusion marketing side of the aisle, the typical fluffy stories are being written to support the message, as Drinker would say. Of course, any talk about the plot is left completely out of these pieces. And what is most known about the characters, again, as I said, is their ever-touted immutables. To that end, these articles are just propaganda that are masquerading as a news story, which again gives me even less faith in the mainstream media. But hey, I think all my faith has been gone in the mainstream. Anyway, moving on. I have even less hope for this film than when I was allowed to see some brief snippets of it just about 2 years ago or less, somewhere in there. Nothing about it is appealing. It relies on a gimmick that provides diminishing returns, and even those that are paid to praise it are turning up their nose at it. So I will enjoy the sad escapade that is about to take place. The opening that will be just as questionable as Captain Marvel, the 60 to 75% fall in the second week of this film, and its slow slide into obscurity by week 3. Hey, taste the rainbow. But I want to know what you think, so use the comment section down below so that we can both understand where we think this film is coming from. Maybe we can have a fun conversation there as well. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Really helps out. And the like button really helps with the algorithm, and the comments are very, very important indeed. Of course, support other independent creators here on the platform because they do not get the same kind of support as the larger channels, especially the ones that are from the mainstream. So please help out and check out their content. Support a few of them, the people that you absolutely enjoy. Subscribe, hit the like, and be sure to comment on their videos as well. And with that being said, I will end this video the same way I end all of them. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. It truly is. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.